The lights of the WNBA flicker under the weight of controversy, and the echoes of betrayal ring louder than the cheers. What started as a quiet season of progress has spiraled into one of the most chaotic moments in league history. The commissioner's seat, once a symbol of leadership, now feels like a throne built on arrogance. Fans aren't just angry, they're heartbroken. Because when a league that preaches empowerment starts silencing its own stars, the very foundation begins to shake. And tonight, that foundation is trembling beneath the weight of one woman's words. Caitlin Clark has spoken. What was meant to be a celebration of women's basketball greatness has become a scandal that could shatter trust across generations. The supposed leader of the WNBA, Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, is accused of making remarks so offensive, so dismissive, that even her own players can no longer defend her. It's not just about an opinion. It's about respect, power, and the culture that defines the league's identity. In an era when women's sports are finally rising, Engelbert's alleged words cut that momentum like a knife through glass. It began with whispers, private words, spoken behind closed doors. But in this new age of transparency, secrets don't stay buried for long. Nafisa Collier, one of the league's most respected stars, decided she couldn't carry the weight of silence anymore. Her revelation about Engelbert's alleged comments stunned the sports world. According to Collier, Engelbert said Caitlin Clark should be grateful for her fame, as if her talent and hard work didn't exist without the league's permission. That sentence alone sent shockwaves through the WNBA and beyond. But the quote didn't stop there. Nafisa went further, claiming that Engelbert boasted other players should be on their knees, thanking her for what she's done for them. The arrogance, the ego, the sheer lack of humility. It was unlike anything fans had ever heard from a league built on solidarity and respect. Overnight, what was supposed to be a quiet offseason became a firestorm of public outrage. The commissioner's reputation, already strained, was now collapsing under the pressure of her own alleged words. The irony is painful. The WNBA was finally reaching new heights, record attendance, surging viewership, national headlines, and yet the person at the top seemed determined to drag it all into chaos. Collier's courage didn't just expose a private comment. It revealed something deeper, something rotten inside the culture of leadership. It made fans question who the league truly values, the athletes who built it or the executives who profit from them. And once that question was asked, there was no going back. The storm had officially begun. The outrage spread like wildfire. Sports commentators, journalists, and fans united under one cause: accountability. Big names like Stephen A. Smith, Christine Brennan, and Dave Portnoy took aim at Engelbert in unison, calling her comments disgusting, tone-deaf, and emblematic of everything wrong with league management. This wasn't just another social media trend. It was an uprising. When prominent figures start saying the same thing fans are shouting online, Cathy Engelbert must resign, you know the damage has reached a point of no return. For Stephen A. Smith, it was about respect. He called Engelbert's words a disgrace to every athlete who's ever fought for equality. For Christine Brennan, it was personal. She's covered women's sports her entire career, and hearing a commissioner diminish her own players hit differently. Dave Portnoy didn't hold back either, branding the league's leadership moronic. This wasn't partisan outrage. It was unified disgust. For the first time in years, the WNBA community was speaking with one voice, and that voice was shaking the walls of the commissioner's office. The WNBA front office scrambled to respond. But instead of a powerful apology or a transparent investigation, they released a sterile statement that felt like damage control. It praised Nafisa Collier for her leadership and said her words reflect the experiences of many players. That one line, many players, was a quiet admission that this wasn't an isolated issue. It hinted at a systemic problem, a leadership culture that had been festering for years. Fans weren't fooled. They knew the truth. The league had been ignoring its players for too long. Cathy Engelbert's personal statement came next, and it only poured gasoline on the fire. Her tone was cold, detached, and robotic. She said she was disheartened by how her words were characterized and that she respected Collier's leadership. There was no denial, no apology, no accountability. And that silence between her sentences spoke volumes. If the conversation never happened, why not say so? If Collier was wrong, why not clarify it? Instead, Engelbert's vague response felt like a quiet admission, and fans were quick to connect the dots. The league that once prided itself on unity was now at war with itself. Fans felt betrayed. Players felt undervalued. And journalists smelled blood in the water. Everywhere you looked, one question echoed louder than any other. Had Cathy Engelbert just destroyed her own credibility? In that silence, a single voice was missing. The one person at the center of it all. Caitlin Clark, the most influential player in the league, had yet to say a word. Her silence became the loudest statement of all. Everyone waited for her response, like a courtroom awaiting the verdict. Days turned into weeks, and the tension only grew. Fans wondered whether Caitlin was staying quiet out of fear or strategy. Was she waiting for the right moment, or was she too disgusted to even dignify the remarks with a response? Either way, the league held its breath, because if Caitlin spoke, everything could change. She wasn't just a player, she was a cultural force. When she finally appeared in front of the cameras for her exit interview, the world tuned in. This wasn't an ordinary post-game chat. It was a reckoning. Before addressing the controversy, Caitlin opened up about her injury, a sprained ankle that sidelined her for the season. But her tone was calm, composed, and ready. You could feel she was holding something back, waiting for the right question. And then it came. A reporter asked what she thought about Nafisa's leaked conversation with the commissioner. The air froze. Caitlin smiled slightly and said, "I have great respect for Fee, and I think she made a lot of very valid points." The calmness in her delivery made the statement even more powerful. It wasn't a rant. It wasn't an outburst. It was precision, a verbal dagger delivered with grace. By acknowledging Collier's courage, Caitlin effectively validated everything Nafisa said. But she went further. She said this moment was the most important time in league history and emphasized the need for great leadership at every level. Every word felt deliberate, like she was choosing them with care. This wasn't just a response. It was a message. The league's brightest star was calling for accountability, and no one could ignore it anymore. Then came the line that made headlines everywhere. Caitlin said, "Fee said it all," for simple words that hit harder than any press release or statement. In that moment, she became the voice of every player who felt silenced, dismissed, or undermined by the league's top brass. The restraint in her tone only amplified its impact. You didn't need anger to feel the weight of her disappointment. And for Cathy Engelbert, those words might as well have been a final judgment, spoken by the very players she tried to diminish. Reporters pressed further, asking Caitlin if she believed her fame was because of the WNBA. Her answer dismantled Engelbert's entire narrative in seconds. She reminded everyone that her popularity began in college, through hard work, nil deals, and brand partnerships that predated her professional career. She mentioned Nike, Hy-Vee, and the businesses that believed in her long before she wore a Fever jersey. It was a masterclass in humility and confidence, a reminder that the league didn't build Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark helped rebuild the league. The brilliance of her response wasn't just in what she said, it was in what she didn't. She never insulted Engelbert. She never demanded punishment. She didn't have to. By calmly recounting her journey, she proved that her success wasn't given, it was earned. That subtle defiance struck a chord with millions. Fans flooded social media with one question: who really made who? Is Caitlin Clark successful because of the WNBA, or is the WNBA successful because of Caitlin Clark? For most, the answer was already crystal clear. Journalist Christine Brennan provided the data to back it up. On CNN, she revealed that ratings without Caitlin Clark had dropped significantly. Last season's playoff games with her presence drew up to 3.4 million viewers, but without her, ratings barely reached 1.5 million. Brennan said it bluntly: Caitlin Clark is the economic rocket ship of this league. Those numbers weren't just statistics. They were proof. Engelbert's comments weren't just cruel. They were factually absurd. The league's biggest star was indebted to the WNBA. The WNBA was surviving because of her. When reporters asked Caitlin whether Engelbert had reached out to her privately, her answer was a single word. No explanation, no elaboration. Just silence after word. Cold and sharp. That silence hit harder than any press conference ever could. The commissioner of the WNBA hadn't even called her most influential player after insulting her behind closed doors. That wasn't just unprofessional, it was personal. Fans realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a grudge, a quiet hostility brewing for months. now exposed under the brightest lights. The internet erupted. Hashtags like hashtag Justice for Clark and hashtag Fire Engelbert began trending within hours. Fans replayed every public slight Caitlin had endured over the past year, and suddenly, the puzzle pieces fit together. From being ignored during key events to receiving cold acknowledgments during awards, the pattern became undeniable. Engelbert wasn't just indifferent, she seemed actively dismissive. It painted a picture of a commissioner who couldn't stand being outshined by her own player, a leader blinded by ego instead of driven by vision. The Rookie of the Year moment became the smoking gun. When Paige Buchers received her award, Engelbert was front and center, smiling under the spotlight. But when Caitlin Clark won the same honor, there was no grand ceremony, no stage, no cameras, just a phone call. A congratulations that felt colder than ice. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. The league's brightest star, the reason for its booming ratings, wasn't even given the decency of a proper presentation. For fans, that wasn't just disrespect. It was deliberate humiliation. Clips resurfaced of Engelbert awkwardly presenting other awards on national TV, while Caitlin was reduced to a brief mention in a press release. Fans began demanding answers. Why was the league treating its biggest star like an inconvenience? Why did Engelbert seem to go out of her way to downplay Clark's impact? The narrative was writing itself. A commissioner consumed by pride, unable to share the spotlight with the player responsible for her league's greatest resurgence. The backlash was now unstoppable, and Cathy Engelbert's name was officially synonymous with disgrace. Sports media didn't hold back. ESPN segments, podcasts, and independent channels all echoed the same demand: accountability. Analysts compared Engelbert's leadership to a sinking ship captained by denial. Others called it a betrayal of everything the WNBA claims to represent. Even players began speaking up cautiously but firmly. They didn't want to bite the hand that feeds them, but when that hand starts choking progress, silence becomes complicity. The league was no longer divided between teams. It was divided between truth and denial. Caitlin's message about leadership struck a nerve. She said, "This is the biggest moment in WNBA history. Everyone in power has a responsibility." Those words lingered in every newsroom, every locker room, every fan discussion online. Because she was right. The WNBA had finally captured global attention, yet instead of unity, it was unraveling under ego and mismanagement. It wasn't just about one commissioner anymore. It was about a league at a crossroads, between evolution and self-destruction, between humility and hubris. Every sane sports fan agreed this wasn't a Caitlin versus the league story anymore. It was the league versus itself. The old guard, led by Engelbert, represented bureaucracy, caution, and outdated hierarchy. Caitlin represented the future: youth, innovation, and empowerment. And when those two worlds collide, one must yield. The fans had chosen their side, and it wasn't even close. Social media polls showed overwhelming support for Caitlin. Sponsors began quietly reconsidering their partnerships. The WNBA's credibility was hemorrhaging, and Engelbert was the one holding the knife. Nafisa Collier returned to the spotlight to defend her comments. She doubled down, saying the real threat to the league wasn't money or ratings, but a lack of accountability from leadership. Those words echoed like thunder. Accountability, the very thing Engelbert refused to show. Collier risked her career to tell the truth, knowing the league could retaliate. But instead, she became a hero. Fans saw her as the conscience of the WNBA, someone willing to lose everything to expose what others were too afraid to say. The tragedy of it all is how preventable it was. A simple apology could have changed everything. A single phone call from Engelbert to Caitlin could have eased tensions. Instead, silence turned into resentment, and resentment into revolt. Now, the commissioner faces an army she built through neglect, fans, players, and journalists united by frustration. The league's internal fractures have been exposed for the world to see. What was once a movement of empowerment has become a case study in leadership failure. At this point, every game feels secondary. The drama off the court has become the main event. Every new headline reads like a scandal. Engelbert under fire. Clark breaks silence. Players demand change. The story transcends basketball. It's about respect, equality, and the consequences of arrogance. The WNBA, built on courage and community, now finds itself trapped by its own leadership. The future of the league depends on one decision: And Cathy Engelbert is running out of time to make it. Players are quietly uniting. Locker rooms that once celebrated rivalries now whisper about reform. Veterans and rookies alike are aligning behind Caitlin and Nafisa, not out of rebellion but out of necessity, because they see what's at stake. The WNBA doesn't need a savior. It needs accountability. If Engelbert can't provide it, then someone else must. The players are no longer afraid to challenge authority. This isn't insubordination, it's evolution. The league that once silenced its stars is now being redefined by them. And the fans? They're louder than ever. Comments flood every platform with one demand: fire Cathy Engelbert. Some call it justice, others call it overdue. Either way, the message is clear. The people who fill the arenas by the jerseys and keep the league alive are done being ignored. They don't just want leadership, they want integrity. Because at the end of the day, basketball is built on trust. And when that trust is broken from the top down, no amount of marketing can fix it. Christine Brennan's words still hang in the air like prophecy. Caitlin Clark is the economic rocket ship of this league. If Engelbert can't recognize that, then maybe she shouldn't be steering the ship at all. The future of women's basketball is brighter than ever, but only if it's led by people who respect those driving its success. Every sign points to a shift, a power transfer from boardrooms to locker rooms, from bureaucracy to authenticity. The WNBA's destiny may no longer belong to the commissioner. It belongs to its players. Caitlin Clark's composure in this chaos is perhaps the most powerful part of the story. She never raised her voice, never retaliated with anger, yet her calm dismantled an empire. It's poetic. Really, the same player accused of being ungrateful is the one showing the most grace. In her silence, she exposed the noise. In her restraint, she revealed the truth. And in her humility, she reminded everyone why fans fell in love with the WNBA in the first place. Authenticity, passion, and respect for the game. The closing image is haunting. The cameras fade, the interviews end, but the tension remains. Behind the polished smiles and official statements, the truth hangs heavy. The WNBA is in crisis. The best players in the world, the best fans in the world, but the worst leadership at the top. Those words, once whispered by a player, now echo across an entire movement. The league stands at a crossroads. Either it listens, evolves, and rebuilds, or it collapses under the weight of its own arrogance. The choice belongs to the commissioner, if she still has time to make it.